Hello and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Wednesday, October 10th, 2018, and this is episode 76. My name is Carol. I'm known as Knitsnpurls on Ravelry. Show notes for this and every episode can be found on the blog and also in the episode thread in the Ravelry group. If you'd like to get in touch, please do so via private message on Ravelry, by leaving a comment on YouTube, or by leaving a comment in the group. I love to hear from you, and I promise that I will get back to you sooner or later. Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today. Welcome to both new and returning viewers. It is kind of a cloudy, gray day here in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, Canada, just east of Vancouver. But it's not raining, so I'm not going to complain. We had a beautiful fall day here yesterday. Sunshine, blue skies, fluffy white clouds, and the fall colors are just beautiful right now. There is a maple just around the corner from where I live that I pass on my walk, and right now it is, I don't know how many different shades of red. I'm thinking maybe it's a sunset maple because it seems to start light at the bottom and work its way up to a darker red. I'm not sure. The new maples we have in our backyard are called Autumn Blaze, and they right now are a beautiful shade of red too, especially when you see them in the sunshine. We've had busy times at the feeders right now. Goldfinches are still around. I haven't seen any juncos yet. They're usually the first indication of fall as far as birds go. And we've had hummingbirds all summer, but lately we've been seeing a male Anna's hummingbird. Very rarely get to see a male hummingbird at the feeder. I can just count a handful of times, but I've seen this one. I assume it's the same one. I think probably half a dozen times in the last week or two. So I'm hoping he's going to be a regular visitor. I tried to get some pictures the other day because the sun was shining and its throat was just this beautiful crimson shade of pinky red. But he was just moving too fast, and my camera was focused on the roof line behind him instead of on the bird itself. So I unfortunately did not capture the picture, but I'm going to keep trying. Had some other birdie adventures this week, but I'm thinking I'll leave that to the end, and we'll get started in on the knitting part of the podcast, because that's what I know when I tune into a knitting podcast, that's what I mostly go in for. Although I do like hearing about podcasters, other aspects of their life, I'm always interested to see what they're working on. And I always figure if I do knitting and such first, if you're not interested in all the extra, it's easy to just end after this section. So I don't have any finished projects this week, but I do have several works in progress. And I'll have a little bit about what I've been reading. I haven't been reading a lot this week. And then I'll talk about what's been going on around here. So let's start with knitting. I'm going to show you the thing I've been working on the most this week. And if you tuned in last week, it probably won't surprise you at all that it's Time Trades by Caitlin Hunter. There is just a drawing of it from the pattern page, and hopefully what you can tell is that it's a striped kind of gradient rectangular shawl, but it's knit in such a way that the ends are diagonal, and I am knitting it from a set of mini skeins and 2 full skeins that I picked up at Knit City from Mid Knit Cravings. There's that light coming in on the label again. I don't know if that helps or not. It's in Sweet Sock, and I used the Tapas Bar mini skein set, and I'm continuing with Amethyst Brooch and Solomon's Robe. So this is Amethyst Brooch and then Solomon's Robe. So I'm at the point where I've used up all my mini skeins, and I'm in the point where I'm alternating these 2 colorways. So here's how it's coming along. I'm just trying to think of the best way to hold it. Maybe this should work. So as you can see, it's kind of a feather and fan pattern, separated but with garter stitch ridges. And there you can see how the end goes diagonal, and then the other end will follow suit. So the first, see if I remember, because I don't have the labels are kind of hiding. This was plum velvet, moves into wine knot, moves into smoke and mirrors. This is kelp garden, I think. And then this one is tapas bar, and you can see it's light gray with speckles of the green and the kind of purpley color. And then switched to the amethyst brooch colorway, and I'm currently working a large section of the Solomon's robe. Loving this. Now, if you were watching last week, you may notice a difference. I told you that I had begun this shawl and had worked after the wine knot. I had added in the smoke and mirrors and then the kelp garden, and then I decided I liked it better with kelp garden first, then smoke and mirrors, and so I ripped it out. And when you saw it last week, I was I think around here working kelp garden, and then I got to the point where I was adding in this tapas bar colorway next to the smoke and mirrors and realized I didn't like it. I really wanted this the kelp tapas bar to pick up the colorways that would border it with the green and the purple. And so yes, I ripped it all out again. So I was about, I think around probably here. Ripped it back to, would have been here. And reknit it the way I had in the first place. But I like it, and I'm happy I did it. This has been such a pleasure to work on. Love seeing how all the colors play out, and I'm particularly enjoying this variegated section because the colors are so pretty. And yeah, just don't really want to put it down, but I have. I haven't worked on this since Monday. Today's Wednesday, because there were a couple of other things I wanted to work on. One of the things I really wanted to do was to, sorry, I'm going to lean out of frame a little bit. I really wanted to cast on a pair of plain socks to take with me on our trip. And so I had shown you this sea turtle fiber arts yarn last week that I'd wound up. It's in the Ridley Sock Struckles format, and it's called Boo. Again, labels are kind of catching the light from the window. So I could have worked on these much more than I did, but I wanted to save them. So I've just cast on, I cast on the cuffs, knit about, I think about 1.25 inches, and I've done just a few rounds of stockinette, and I'm not going to touch them again till we're on our trip, because otherwise I just won't be able to put them down. I know I'll just knit and see how they come out. This is the Struckles. You can see it's like stripes of speckles basically. So that's a fun yarn. I'm looking forward to working on these, definitely working on these more. Fun colors and just simple knitting. And then yesterday I picked up my Learning to Cry shawl again. That's by Helen Stewart. And I'm knitting it from, let me just grab it here. This is Alpha B yarn, in the Lux Bee yarn, which is a 50% superwash merino, 50% silk blend, which you can, I don't know if a camera ever captures it. Sometimes I can see it in playback, but it's such a beautiful sheen to it and a very tonal pink. It's called Duchesse de Brabant. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. That's my best French accent. So yeah, Alpha Bee yarn, that's their logo. And then that was the tag. And I am alternating it with Katya Silk Mohair in color 701, and it is a kind of a color block yarn. There's various shades of pink and gray. So yesterday I knit one more, or finished one more garter stitch section and a section of lace. So I'm just going to hold it up. So it's getting to the point where it's almost filling up the whole needle. So I have to be careful not to have it go off the needle. So that's my latest stripe there. Bring it in. You can see how the light catches the silk yarn there. It's just so pretty. I'm going to see, maybe this is a better way to show it off in its entirety. So started narrow, had this pink stripe, had this kind of pinky gray stripe, had this gray stripe, and now it's sort of this purpley gray. And then the yarn turns a little bit light again and then into the pink. I am basically just over 50% of the way through the shawl the way it's written. And I weighed my yarn. I didn't actually weigh my mohair yarn. I know I have more than enough of that. I weighed this yarn. And after for some reason, when I started knitting the shawl, I thought I had as much as the shawl called for. I don't know what I was looking at that made me think that, but I don't. I have less than it calls for. So I've known all along that I may not have enough to knit it as written. And I kind of suspect with, if I'm halfway through the shawl, I've used more than half of that yarn up. And there's an equal number of garter and mohair sections in here. So I believe I am not going to be able to knit the last one. Now I think I was looking, don't quote me on this, but I think I may only have one more section of each to do in that case. I think I'm supposed to do 2 more of each section to complete. So that's okay. I think it'll still be, once it's knit and once it's blocked out, it should be a good size to wear kind of as a you know, a shawl, a scarf, because even now it's almost long enough to do that. So that's okay. That suits me just fine. I have to say I'm getting tired of the garter stitch. By the time I reached the end of this section last night, I was so happy to be able to break it up with this mohair, but now I've got a whole other stretch of garter stitch, and of course because the shawl is widening with each row, it's going to take even longer to do that last section. But I'll persevere because I think it's really pretty and would like to see it done. I do not anticipate finishing it before we go, but I'm going to give it my best shot. I've got the evenings still free, even though I've got lots going on during the days. I'm just drinking tea out of my chickadee mug. We've had chickadees at the feeder. They're one of my absolute favorite feeder birds. They're just so cute. Little and cute and fast. They come in, grab a seed, fly away, and you think, you know, if you would just sit there and eat it, it would take less energy. But I don't know, for some reason they're always flitting here and there. The last project that I have to show you is part of a mystery knit along. So if you do not want to be spoiled, I'm knitting the Downtown Mystery Sock Knit Along, something like that, by Lori Law. So if you don't want to be spoiled, here's your warning to look away now and come back in a few minutes. All right, so I'm still on clue 1, which is to do the leg of the sock. I have only done 2 pattern repeats, the ribbing and 2 pattern repeats on each leg, and I have to do 3 more pattern repeats that are 18 rows each. But I like how it's coming along. I think this week you might be able to see the texture pattern a little bit better than last week. And I really like this yarn. It is, oh, did I put the label in here? Yes, I did. It's the Cyborg Craft Room, a Sockolate, which is a 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon in the Stepping Stones colorway. These socks are for my husband for Christmas, so I am trying not to work on them. Well, I'm not trying. I'm not working on them when he's around, which makes it kind of hard for me to take on my trip because we're basically going to be joined at the hip for 2 weeks. So I suspect these are going to have to wait till I come home. Again, I might try and knock out more of the leg before I leave. We'll just have to see how the timing goes. We did receive clue 2, which is the heel section. So the heels might have to wait until I get home again. But I have to say I'm very happy with these so far. They're not a difficult pattern at all, and I really like this yarn. And yeah, I like how they're knitting up so far. As I mentioned, I've been reading a little bit this week. I've been continuing to read Little Town on the Prairie and by Laura Ingalls Wilder, and also corresponding sections of Pioneer Girl, the original manuscript upon which the Little House series is based. I think when I talked to you last week, I was reading the part about when Laura started working in town, and in the book, in the novel, she sews shirts for a number of weeks and earns $9 that she takes home and gives to her mom to put towards sending her sister Mary to the College for the Blind in Iowa. And it was interesting in reading the Pioneer Girl is, in fact, she only earned just over $1, brought home, I guess she earned about $3.75 or something in all, but spent some on some dry goods, which we're not sure if they were for Mary, or if, as there's depicted in the book, or if they were for herself. But she alludes to the relationship between the shop owner and his wife and his mother-in-law in this book, but in reality it was quite a bit more dysfunctional household than is described here, and the shopkeeper in fact was abusive to his wife, slapped her and dragged her by the hair from one room to another, and so Pa put an end to her working in town. So other than how she's differently than how she depicted in here, she didn't work for weeks and weeks. She only worked for a short time before her parents basically said, that's not a good place for you to be. In this book, she also tells a story of 2 men that come out of the saloon and walk down the street kicking in screen doors, and she finds it really funny, although all the adults do not see the humor in it, of course, because it's destructive. And I can't remember the name she uses in the book for the, there's a man who says, let me just see if I can find it, yeah, here. He says, my name is Tay Pei Pryor, and I'm drunk. And in the book, it's actually in the Pioneer Girl manuscript. It's actually T.P. Power, which was the tailor, which I believe is her friend Mary Power's father. And I'm wondering if she changed it in the book because she didn't want the appearance of one of her friends having basically a drunk for a father. So again, just really interesting to see how the actual novels differ from her own memories of that time. I also mentioned last week that I had bought a Christmas ornament based on one of the illustrations from this book. So this is from the chapter 4th of July, where Pa and Laura and Carrie walk into town for 4th of July celebrations. And I bought this ornament for myself. So look forward to seeing that on the Christmas tree this year. I thought they did a nice job. There was a whole series of these ornaments. I brought one back for Jessica that was from Little House in the Big Woods, and if you've read the books, you might remember the illustration of Pa playing the fiddle and Laura being right beside him watching it. That's the one I brought for Jess. And I actually really wrestled over which one to give her and which one to keep, and I almost kept them both, but that wouldn't have been right. So yeah, I ended up keeping this one just because it was a little town on the prairie reference, and I had been in the little town when I bought it. I'm just gonna put my book down over here so it doesn't jiggle the ironing board this week. Okay, so I've got a few things to talk about what happened this week. There have been lots of goings on this week. One of the more interesting, to me anyway, involves a hawk that had landed in a neighbor's tree. So Cameron saw the hawk land and called me. So I grabbed my camera and went and took a look, and the sun was shining on the hawk. It just looked so nice against the blue sky. So I took a picture, zoomed in and took a picture. And then some crows arrived very quickly and attempted to chase the hawk out of the tree. So I got a little bit of footage of that, which I'll put in here. So unfortunately, it didn't take very long for the crows to succeed, and the hawk flew away. So a little while later, I uploaded the photos and footage onto my computer. And when I first looked at the picture of the hawk, I just thought it was interesting because what I thought was part of the feather pattern looked like writing. And then I looked closer and realized that actually the hawk was wearing a tag that said 5R, and also had a little band around its leg. So I was curious about who would have tagged the hawk and why. So I went on a Google search and I came across a blog post from a few years ago that referenced a prior blog post in which the blogger had talked about a red-tailed hawk that he had spotted with a similar tag. And in this blog post that I read was a letter from a man named Gary Searing, and he is a wildlife hazard biologist. He works out of the Vancouver Airport, International Airport. He's part of the Airport Wildlife Management International. He's the executive director of the Bird Strike Committee of Canada. That's a mouthful. And in this letter on the blog post, he explained that in 2010, this committee, or this organization had been formed to capture juvenile hawks that were located near the Vancouver airport, and to tag them, band them, and relocate them out, most of them out here in Chilliwack, which is where I live, which is over 100 kilometers away from the airport. Apparently, juvenile hawks, or raptors in general, are more likely to fly into an airplane than an adult bird, and posing both a danger, of course, to themselves and to the aircraft. And so in 2013, this program was extended to include other raptors, including owls. And I just thought it was a really fascinating story. And so the blog post led me to this association's website, and I emailed Gary with the photo and let him know that I had spotted this hawk. So he got back to me the next day and told me that it was a red-tailed hawk that was born this year and hatched at the airport. And he really caught it on August 26th and released it the next day here in Chilliwack. And mine is the first recorded sighting of the bird since it was released. So I found it really fascinating. He sent me a whole blurb about what the program does. It said that the results of our work have been dramatic. We have reduced raptor strikes at YVR from 65 per year in 2012 to 2013 to 23 in 2017/18. So it's results in 40 more raptors per year that are alive that would have been struck by aircraft. So I thought it was a really cool program, and just really serendipitous that I happened to capture this bird on my camera. So I thought it was a really, really interesting program. So let's see, what else? Monday was Thanksgiving here in Canada, but we decided to have the family for dinner on Sunday instead of Monday, because the kids didn't have to go to school the next day, so didn't have to worry about how late they were up, and it just seems to work better for everybody. So we cooked a turkey, or I should say I cooked a turkey. And yeah, we had just had a really nice dinner. Colin, our younger son, is known for his Yorkshire pudding, and you say Yorkshire pudding and turkey, they don't go together. It's kind of a bit of a joke in our family, because when my son-in-law joined our family, we learned that his mom made Yorkshire pudding with turkey, not just with roast beef. And while I don't do it every time, I did plan for it this time. I asked Colin to make them because he's the Yorkshire pudding king. He'll just sometimes, just on a whim, just make them like at 10 o'clock at night. And his recipe is different than mine. It's a little bit, they actually always seem to come up really nice and light. And anyway, that was just one less job I had to do. So he came over and made Yorkshire pudding. And then Jessica brought baked apples. We put those in the oven after the turkey had come out, and those were really nice dessert. And then we couldn't not have pumpkin pie. That might be the only chance I have it this year, so we bought a pumpkin pie and had that too. So really, really nice dinner. And then I made a pot of soup Monday, I guess, the next day. And then we had that for supper last night. Well, I often will make biscuits to go with soup if we're going to have the soup as a supper, not just as a lunch thing. So I made some baking powder biscuits, and I put some grated cheese into them. And when I put them in for 10 minutes, when I checked them after 10 minutes, the pan was really greasy, and the biscuits hadn't risen at all. And I'm like, these might not be so good. And so I cooked them another 5 minutes, got them out, and I thought, well, maybe I put too much cheese because they were very greasy. And then I thought, well, maybe I had halved the recipe. So I thought, oh, maybe I put in the full amount of butter instead of halving it. But then I checked, and no, I hadn't. And then I realized I had forgotten to put the baking powder into the biscuits, and that explained why they did not rise and why the fat didn't distribute more kindly. So we tried a little bit of one and it tasted okay, but it really wasn't very good. So Cam asked how long it would take to cook some more. I said not that long once I mix them up. So we postponed the soup and I mixed up another batch, and these came out much, much better. So we enjoyed our dinner. Soup was really good. I don't know about you and if you make soup, but sometimes it's okay and sometimes it's really good. So this was a really good soup. Lots of flavor. The turkey had been quite brown, and so just from the skin and bones and stuff that I had put into the soup stock, a lot of that translated, so it had a darker broth than it does sometimes, and yeah, it just was really good. So we ate our soup, and I transferred what was left into a smaller pot, and I left it on top of the stove to cool, and before I put it in the fridge because I didn't want to crack the tray. And then when Cameron came in this morning to say goodbye before he left for work, came into the bedroom, he said, by the way, we left the soup out all night. So he said, what do you want me to do with it? I said, oh, just put it in the fridge. So now I have a dilemma. And do I chuck the rest of the soup? Or do I chance it and heat it up and have it for lunch? Been looking at the internet. There's mixed feelings about it. Some people say if you heat it up, it's already been at a boil, it'll kill germs, and if you heat it up again to boiling, it'll kill any other bacteria. Other things say no, chuck it. So I still haven't decided what to do. I have a leftover biscuit, and I was really looking forward to turkey soup and biscuit for lunch. On the other hand, this is not the time to get sick with food poisoning. I have way too many things to do before I leave for our trip on Saturday. I think I'm leaning towards being safe than sorry, but it's gonna kill me to dispose of it because it was so good. But you know, I don't think it's that smart to potentially expose myself to food poisoning. I guess that decision's been made. But that just breaks my heart. For me, I like turkey dinner, but for me the leftovers parts are even better. So we had turkey sandwiches on Monday, and I had one again for lunch yesterday, and then we had enough turkey and stuffing, cranberry sauce, and that gravy. I cooked some more potatoes, mashed them on Monday. So we basically on Thanksgiving had Thanksgiving dinner all over again, just the two of us, and it was just as good as the day before. And the soup. The soup's probably my favorite part, and now, well, I have to get over it. We're on baby watch here. My niece is due anytime, and so we are anxiously awaiting news about the baby. They do not know if it's a boy or girl, so we'll all be surprised. So I'm hoping everything goes well for her, and I'm really hoping that she has the baby before we leave. Otherwise, I guess it doesn't really make a difference. It's just it would just be good to know all that before we go, to know everything's fine and not be dependent on intermittent internet and all that. Back in 2005, I think it was. Is that right? Yeah, I guess it is. My great niece was born, and we were away at that time in Europe, actually, and had to keep checking. And that's back when internet was a little more sketchy and stuff. So we had to keep checking in to check to see if she'd been born. So we're quite thrilled when we learned of her birth there. So maybe the same thing's going to happen this time. I don't know. Have been busy getting clothes ready for the trip. I basically have figured out everything I'm taking and have ironed and fluffed and all those things. Everything's laid out, ready to fold up and put in the suitcase. And today I'll work on my husband's stuff. I have a lot of his clothes all sorted out, but some need some ironing and such, freshening up. So I'll do that. I'm hopefully going to try and finish that today. My goal is to have everything ready to go by Friday and actually fold them up, put them in the suitcase on Friday. We leave here about noon Saturday. So I want to delay putting them in the suitcase as long as possible. Although there's a part of me that wonders, does it really make a difference if you fold everything up, put it in the suitcase? Does it really matter if it's in the suitcase for 1 day or 2 days or 3 days? Is it going to be any less wrinkled at the other end? I don't know, but in my mind, the longer I wait, the fresher they'll be. I have no idea if that makes sense or not. I have to go after this afternoon. We have municipal elections coming up while we're gone, so I've got to go down to City Hall today and vote. And then tomorrow I've got a dentist appointment. It's just a cleaning, so that'll be nice clean teeth to go. And Saturday I gotta do what I call maintenance. That's the whole plucking and mani-pedi and all that stuff. I'll take care of all that on Friday. So I'm all in perfect shape. Well, no, not perfect shape. I'll be in better shape for this trip. Definitely looking forward to it. We, as I said, we leave on Saturday, fly to Barcelona. We're there for a couple of nights before we get on the cruise ship. Takes us to a couple stops in France, Marseille and Villefranche, where we'll go to Monaco. From there, we'll go to Rome, Pisa, Naples, Pompeii. We've been before, and I'm really thrilled to get to go see Pompeii again. We get to do a tour of that. Sorrento, and then Dubrovnik, Croatia, and stop in Slovenia, and then we end in Venice. Fly home from there. So super excited. Lots of really cool tours planned for us. Thursday evening, after I had podcasted, Cameron came home with all the tickets and cruise information, and we learned that we have a veranda stateroom with a concierge. I've never had a concierge before. I'm not even sure what a concierge does. But don't we feel pampered? That's pretty cool. And one of the best things too is with that particular package, I guess, we get some free laundry. So that's a small thing, but it's kind of nice because we normally pack enough things to last us the whole trip so that we don't have to do laundry. Once upon a time, the cruise ships used to have a little laundry room, and you could actually wash and dry and iron clothes. Now they don't seem to have those, so you need to send laundry out to be done, and it is not inexpensive if you've ever seen the prices. And so that's just kind of a bonus. So we'll be able to pack a few less things. For instance, we'll wear our jeans over and be able to have those laundered to wear home again. I don't think, unless at the very end, I know I was looking at the weather in Venice is supposed to be wet and cool by the time we're there in a couple weeks' time. So we might want long pants there, but it'll be nice to have a chance to get those done and just some basics laundered before the end of the trip so that we can have them to go home with. Other than that, most things I'm doing the same thing, just taking enough to last us, and I'll worry about laundry when we get home. Because honestly, some of my things I don't really trust to a launder. I'd rather do them myself. Kind of picky about certain clothes, how I take care of them. I'm still trying to figure out what knitting to take with me. I'll definitely take my Boo socks, and I think I'll take my Time Trades project in my suitcase, not my carry-on, and maybe my passion fruit cocktail socks, just in case I need another sock project if I run out of knitting. I know from experience that on these trips I don't usually get much chance to knit, and this trip we have excursions every day but one when we're in. We have a day at sea, one day at sea at the whole time, and so maybe I would take some knitting to do on the bus on our way to some of the excursions, but maybe not. So I don't expect to do a ton of knitting over the next 2 weeks, which always makes me kind of sad. But you know, at what cost, right? I mean, who am I to complain about lack of knitting time? Crazy. Anyway, definitely looking forward to this trip. So I will have very limited internet access. I know I think it's on the ship you get free internet, but only for one device, and that'll definitely be my husband's cell because he has to be accessible for work. And so maybe the odd time I'll be able to get internet, public internet, while we're out and about on my phone, but I am not turning on my data at all, so definitely going to be very limited. So if you do drop me a line, you might have to wait a couple weeks till you hear back from me. So yeah, it'll be, I believe, probably into November before I speak to you all again. So take care in the meantime. Thanks as always for watching and for your comments. Always appreciate comments and feedback. So take care of yourselves. Happy knitting, and I'll see you in a few weeks with lots of stories to tell. Bye.